All right. Episode 19 of the Football Pod is here, and we have just crowned the 2021 All-Ireland champions. And it is Tyrone. The county of Tyrone have won the All-Ireland for this year. Andy Moran, I'm going to go straight to you because Paddy Andrews wasn't even in the country when this final was taking place. Can you talk us through the pain?
Yeah, it was an unusual day. It was, Joe, you go with like the hope and the expectation of a supporter. It's very bizarre, to be honest with you. You go in and you see it's 50-50. You go in at half time, the team haven't played well, and you're thinking we're shooting into the Davin stand here. We're 2 points down. Wow, what a chance! Now you know what's coming off the Tyrone bench. You know you have a big Tyrone bench coming, which we'll get to. But the chance at halftime was real, and it just kind of faded away from us. I don't think at any stage I thought, okay, we're on here to win this. But hugely disappointing. Watching a few friends, I suppose, like Colin Boyle at the end of the game, just standing on the pitch, might be his last time to grace Croker. All that. You have them range of emotions. But listen, the best team won. The best team won, and you come out and you couldn't begrudge it to them. What they went through, the teams they've beaten along the way. As a Mayo person, very disappointed. The town was like, Castlebar was like, it's like someone died over there. But it's, listen, it's very, very somber at the minute. But it was, it was one of those days we didn't perform. And Tyrone did their job, and they're going home with Sam Maguire.
Paddy, you've obviously watched the game back since. Tyrone grabbed that game by the throat when it was there to be won. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
and look, we touched on it last week. This felt like a massive opportunity for both of these teams for Mayo to end so many years of devastating losses, having finally gotten over the Dublin hurdle in the semi-final. Then all of a sudden, the red hot favourites of Kerry are beaten in the other semi-final, and Tyrone have an opportunity to win only their fourth All-Ireland and the first time in 13 years. The teams were so evenly matched. The two big dogs were beaten in the semi-finals. We just got the sense whoever won this one, it was going to be a massive win, and whoever lost it, it was going to be an even devastating to lose an All-Ireland final, but even more so to lose this one, because it was such a massive opportunity for two essentially underdogs to get to this All-Ireland final. Like, nobody had backed these two teams to get there. You feel that probably Dublin will bounce back next season. Kerry, with all the talent they have, they're surely going to start pushing on. There might be change of coaches there. You feel like they'll be back at the top table again. It just felt like a massive, massive opportunity for one team to grab it, and it was Tyrone. It was, and I touched on it last week. It was a tight game to call because the teams played such a similar style. They both came through unfancied in their semi-finals and took out two of the favourites, and it was a hard one to call. But I just felt Tyrone's greater scoring power would probably see them over the line, and the old failings that have probably hurt Mayo in some of the big All-Ireland finals over the past decade. You could kind of see that in the second half, that Tyrone, you're right, Tommy, they controlled the game, they had them at arm's length, and particularly once the goals went in, you just felt Mayo were not going to have the firepower to get that one back. Yes, they had opportunities, but they just weren't clinical enough, and it is a devastating loss for them again, because it was such a unique final that you felt it was probably as good an opportunity as they'll ever have, and that's why you can sense the devastation for the players and for the supporters as well. But Andy's right. There's no qualms about this one. Tyrone were a better team on the day. They could have played that match for another hour. Tyrone were going to keep their noses in front in that game, and it was well deserved.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we're 19 episodes into the Football Pod this year. Tyrone have featured plenty of times in the podcast, especially in the early weeks when we were talking about them. Andy, you have obviously spent time in college up around that part of the country. You know a lot of people up there. So I felt like it was a county that we did speak about, especially with their new management ticket at the start of the year. None of us are really talking about them as All-Ireland contenders. So the story of Tyrone, we're going to get into that in this podcast and how they've managed to win that fourth All-Ireland ever in the county. We're going to talk about how they did it, the stars, the players that made it work for them, what they got right on the day. We're also going to pick through where Mayo went wrong, how it fell apart from them on the day, and while the chances were there, they just didn't take them. There's an Instagram Q&A coming your way at the end. Some of the Football Pod listeners have sent in their questions. As always, some that we can bring out on air and some that we can't. And if you don't mind, I'm going to move from, a lot of the pieces that we've had off the ball over the last 3 or 4 days rightfully have been the sheer elation. And I think people of Tyrone, they're nearly a little, this one's taking them a little bit by surprise themselves. I think they're nearly getting used to it now, 2 days on, that they've actually won the All-Ireland again. And I heard Brian McGuigan said off the ball tonight that it actually feels like the first one in 2003. It's that kind of 14 years isn't a long time since they won in 2008, but it's that kind of a feeling again, like that first one they won in 2003. It feels like a new coming all together. Can we picture the carcass a little bit more? And I don't want this to be a wake today, but it must feel like that a little bit in Mayo. Like you mentioned the range of emotions that you went through in the game. What range of emotions have you gone through watching it back? Because I know you've watched it back more than once since Saturday evening. Like, you probably started off initially disappointment. You're running out of Croker just to get home. What's it been like since?
It was a funny one because it wasn't where we were tight and we lost. To me, the game, we never got going in the second half. We never got the crowd never got going. It never built up. Like we're like Paddy has said it an awful lot of the time. We live on chaos. We like the ball being broke. We like mistakes. And we pointed out last week that there was going to be huge mistakes. There was going to be missed frees. There was going to be instances where you got chances. And with the team who maximised that the most, that went and won the game. And for me, it's quite simple. We Dewar and Logan and the guys probably bet James and Kieran Mack and them guys in terms of tactical approach. And I think that's fair to say. And then on top, like if you look at the matchups that Tyrone, like their matchups bet our matchups. Like Meyler takes Paddy Durkin out. Paddy's such an important player for us. And their midfield, lads, Kelly and Kilpatrick were simply outstanding. Like for me, I know Meyler and McCurry and these guys were excellent, but Kilpatrick was sensational in the game.
Isn't that funny, Andy? Because I know two of us would have to hold our hands up last week. How Ruan had played throughout the summer, really a breakout year for him, obviously with a brilliant performance in the Connacht final and his performance against Dublin. We felt the teams were so evenly matched, but absolutely we both said that Mayo would have an advantage around the middle with their athleticism, and that would be a key platform for them to go and try and win this game. And that was absolutely turned on its head. In terms of dealing with Morgan's kickouts and the impact both those relatively inexperienced Tyrone guys had in that game was outstanding from Kilpatrick and Kennedy to give Tyrone that platform off Morgan's kickouts. And that was surprising. That was, and you felt if Mayo didn't have that foothold, they couldn't get the ball inside to their inside forwards, who we felt would probably might struggle for scores anyway, but with even less possession, it just became a bit of a non-event in there. And that was an outstanding piece from both those Tyrone midfielders who deserve massive credit there.
Before you jump back in there, Andy, I think last week it definitely felt like Mayo were 60-40, maybe even 65-35 in that area, and that we thought that Mayo would get the run on them, even attacking-wise, to put them on the back foot. But we had Niall Morgan on OTB AM this morning, and the brilliant interview, 25 minutes. And he spoke about during the week, Con Kilpatrick coming up to him, actually before the game, and he said, if you need an out ball, just land it on me. Just hit me with it. I know I have it. And you saw Morgan, he was looking for that centre forward ball a lot, or that out ball to Con Kilpatrick. Those boys must have been going into that game thinking, do you know what? We've been motoring well here. We can take down Ruan and O'Connor and Loftus. They seem to play with their chest out. I think it summed it up at the end. Ruan's right card. I know it's the end of a game and the frustration is there, but Kilpatrick seemed to do those little wrestling matches. He got away with it earlier in the game, I think, with O'Shea. Kennedy got booked early on and he managed to stay on. They just seem to win the little jewels in the middle of the field throughout.
They did it all over. And I suppose to answer the question that you asked me earlier, and I'll come back to the midfielders, the sense for us, Mayo, right now is how do we lose so many of them battles? Like if you go through the Mayo team, the biggest issue we really have is that our two main performers, the two guys that maximised what they could do, was Stephen Cohen, who was outstanding, and Lee Keegan, who was outstanding. And outside that, then you're looking at our performances and you're thinking, he could have done better, he could have done better, he could have done more, he could have done, and it's right throughout the team, and that's the most disappointing part from being from Mayo. But if you look at Tyrone, you look at maybe 10, 11 performances of the highest caliber, and you have McKenna, your boy, as Paddy likes to call it for you, your boy McKenna, like he does nothing really, and has a massive play on 1-1. Like he gets a kick out, gets it to McCurry straight away. McCurry kicks point first half, and then his play for the goal is just is an outstanding bit of football. Like you can see the football. It's just there. It's just they need to. You
said it. You said it a few weeks ago. It's nearly like he's playing AFL still. Like he's a moment's man. It's nearly like those 5-minute bursts. It's even when he's chasing down a fella. I thought yesterday he was going to pull a fella down in an AFL style tackle. But you know that Morgan's bomb over the top that McCurry nearly scores the goal at 30 minutes
First
in?
half. Yeah.
McKenna gets a flick on that.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's doing as well. Like he knows Darren McCurry is behind him.
I said it. He's like he's a moments player for the time. And I get, look, he's been away for a period of time. Like I'd say very limited possessions in the semi-final against Kerry, yet he comes up and scores 2 goals. You know what I mean? He has had big plays throughout this summer without ever dominating the game, and you get the sense that it's there. Like his athleticism, his speed, his power is all there. You can see at times he does some brilliant things on the ball, and then he does some rash things, and when he misses a bad mark in the second half, you're thinking that's technically that's quite an easy kick for someone like him. But Andy's right, it kind of passes him by for a lot of the game, but then he comes through with that play and the pass to McCurry, and ultimately once that goal goes in, and there was a huffing and puffing afterwards from Mayo, once that goal goes in, you felt that was the race run, that Tyrone were home and hosed, and that was just a brilliant play from him. And quiet down for the rest of the game.
Well, yeah. Well, like we'll come back to those moments. So I want to know who gets the credit for like squeezing every inch out of Conor McShane and Conor McKenna that those boys got this year. They got huge scores and huge moments out of them. But Andy, you said it, like Stephen Cohen and Lee Keegan looking beyond them. Lee Keegan turns around after that goal and scores another incredible point. And you're just thinking, if anyone can drag Mayo back, it's Lee Keegan. But he couldn't do it on his own. Like, why? How does that happen in a game like that? I'm not saying naturally it can happen to a couple of players, but how can 2/3 of your team not do themselves justice?
Well, it's not okay. So I think that's kind of rash to just say that. It goes 2 ways. So for Kerry, in most battles, you have a team that says we need to play our way, and then you have a team that's going to shut them down. Now, Tyrone are so comfortable, and they've the exact personnel you need to shut a team down, and they literally went after. They went after Lee a bit, but Lee did well. They went after Paddy Durcan. Meyler did really well in Paddy Durcan. They went after Oisin Mullen every time he came forward to the platform. Michael O'Neill, Frank Burns just sat in the centre, took him once he came through the middle. They went after Matty Ruan hugely and just took him out of the game. And then Kilpatrick and Kennedy do their bits and pieces then around it. And they Tommy... like Hampsey's pace, lads, when Tommy Conroy goes up the end line on him, he sticks with him. I was just like, whoa. Yeah. I think he had that.
Noticed that, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know what I think of Ryan O'Donoghue, superb footballer, but McKernan does a terrific job of him. Like a terrific job of him. Kevin McLaughlin, Petey Harte, these guys, they just won them battles. And once you took our guys out of it, our main guys, like if you think about it, out of Diarmuid, Matty and Loftus, Connor shoots for 1-3. So I never really give out about a bucket shot, even though some of his shots mightn't have been the right decisions. But he shot. Matty and Diarmuid didn't get a shot. They didn't get a shot for the game. The 2 guys, me and Paddy, sat here last week and said, if we get them in around the fringes, getting a few shots off, they have a real chance. But not a chance. Like Diarmuid did okay around the middle, but never got dangerous where we needed him to get dangerous. And that was the big issue for us. We needed Paddy Durcan, Lee Keegan, Matty Ruan, Diarmuid O'Connor and Loftus to score. We needed them to score and then supplement that with what Ryan O'Donoghue and Tommy Conroy would do. It never happened. We were never going to score enough. And Paddy says about the old failings, and of course I'm a forward, so I'm going to stand up for the forwards. Our problem in finals is we've conceded goals. Like, you look at last year against Dublin, 2 14 to 15 points. You look at our scoreline against Dublin, I think in 2013 was something like
2-12.
2 goals as well. Yeah,
2-12 to 113 or something in around that. Donegal in 2012, 2-11 to 12 points in around them scorelines. The problem was, yes, we mightn't have scored enough of, but the 2 goals have always killed us. And again, the last day, the 2 goals killed us.
Eamon Fitzmaurice had a line about the charge of the Light Brigade and I suppose the Mayo attack and the style of football that Horan wants to play. That, it's everyone's going forward and it's within that chaos. And then when you're in the chaos, it's incredible. But we also knew coming into this that Tyrone got 2-7 off turnovers against Kerry. And I think they got 1-7 yesterday off turnovers. So is that where you're left, like Paddy, is that where Mayo are left exposed, that they are that gung-ho that you'll catch them?
Just on the Fitzmaurice bit before you come in, I think a bit of Eamon's piece, which was class piece, but I think a bit of it was being written about Kerry, if I'm being honest. Okay. So he was writing about Mayo, but I think there was a small bit saying we did the same thing 2 weeks ago here, Sorry.
So you're going for the gig as well, no? So you and Jenny.
You got me in enough trouble last week. Leave me alone.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. No, I think Tyrone are so well suited to the style that Mayo play. Like in terms of a running game, runners from deep, Tyrone are so well organised. They're so fit and athletic themselves. Mayo's A game suited Tyrone. And Andy raised the point there, and you have to give massive praise. It's probably not the most aesthetically pleasing bit of the game, but if you look at what Tyrone do to Kerry's key players, David Moran, Sean O'Shea, Paddy Clifford, all of Kerry's key attacking threats outside of Clifford. Clifford's, like say, a launch himself. But all of those guys were all on the periphery of that game in the semi-final. They're all getting possessions, but they're not in dangerous areas. They're being tagged so diligently by the matchups. And we spoke in an earlier pod in the summer, the importance of getting your matchups and your man-to-man guys right is literally the difference between winning and losing. You get one of them wrong and someone makes hay, and there's probably a challenge I feel about McCurry and O'Hara. I don't think they were suited. McCurry gets man of the match. Look, it's not the only thing, but the importance of having our matchup spot on. Tyrone got them right in all the big games.
Yep.
And you look at what Mayo needed, and we said this last week. Tommy Conroy and Ryan O'Donoghue are good players and they've had good seasons. They are not of the calibre of a David Clifford, Con O'Callaghan, Paul Mannion and those guys at their peak, where they can probably shoot. They can win you a game on their own. They can kick a couple of scores. There'll be a handful. But for Mayo to get the scores to win this game, they needed those guys around the middle of the pitch. They needed 2 points off O'Connor. They needed Matthew Rowan to have the impact he had in the Connacht final. They needed Aidan to try and chip in with maybe 1-2 points. Paddy Dirk and Lee. They needed all of those guys to offer something in an attacking sense. Tyrone knew that. And they got their matchup spot on again. And just like in the semi-final, just like against Donegal in the Ulster semi-final as well, Tyrone nullified the key players for the opposition, and they were all around the fringes of the game. And even Keegan has a brilliant kind of third quarter. That's nearly probably just his mentality. He's just driving forward. But a lot of Mayo's key guys were not in that game. And that's credit to the matchups and the organisation of what Tyrone did. And the style that Mayo play, running the ball from deep, that is bread and butter to that Tyrone defence. Really is.
There was a kick out in the first half that Henley took short to Aidan O'Shea, and Aidan O'Shea ran 50 yards with it, and he gave it to Matty Ruan, and Ruan ran into a bit of contact and fisted it over the line. Now, Frank Byrne stood on the sideline and put it over, but it reminded me a little bit of the Kerry game and what we saw in kind of
very similar,
allowing them to do it. Is this me asking this question out of naivety and hindsight? But I felt like after the Kerry game, we were talking about the fact that Kerry didn't really focus on the Tyrone players, in the sense that Tyrone nailed their matchups, and maybe it's because they were the underdog going in. But like all week we were talking about this being 50-50. How come it feels like Mayo possibly didn't focus on their own matchups? Why didn't Mayo focus on nullifying the Tyrone boys? Is that fair to say? Like, did they stop McGeary, say? It feels like McGeary had less of an impact than the semi-final. Did Mayo get any other matchups right, or is it like, again, the winners writing the scripts? Is it? I don't know. Is that harsh to say, Paddy?
I think they got some right. Like say, I thought the Harte one and McCurry wasn't great, but then if you look at like Matty Donnelly is pretty much taken out of the game. He gets 1 point, but it's taken off at the 45 minutes. You wouldn't have really thought that before the game. You would have thought if Tyrone are going to win, Matty Donnelly's going to have the big impact. McGeary was definitely quieter, but look, that's probably understandable because he was so influential in the previous games. I felt, look, and Andy said, and I think the general consensus from the reaction from the last couple of days, on the line, Tyrone won that battle, I feel. The more pressing concern I would have had for James Horan was the style of play that it clearly wasn't working. That we're trying to run the ball, very similar to what Kerry did in the semi-final. We're turning the ball over a lot. Tyrone scored 1-7 off turnovers, losing the ball in contact. And you're talking, there is space inside in that Tyrone defence. It's different from the kind of Mickey Harte style where there's guys sitting there all the time. Tyrone get a lot of guys back in transition. But if you kick the ball quickly, like Rob Henley goes along with a kick out to Matty Moran, who wins it, or Aidan, and delivers the ball to Kevin McLaughlin, who puts a 40-yard kick pass in to Aidan O'Shea on the edge of the square with the two boys inside. That never happened in the game. Never. And this is why in a way, I think Aidan O'Shea is kind of getting challenged a lot about this, and some of it's just bullshit. It's kind of it seems like it's a bit personal on the side of things that the social media can be like that. But if you're playing Aidan O'Shea inside in the full forward line, you've got to kick the ball into him. There's no point in having him in there and running the ball from all over the pitch. He is not going to get possessions in that regard. You're not playing to his strengths. The only time he'll get the ball is when you've spent 25, 30 seconds transitioning it up the pitch and Tyrone are set in the defence. So if you're going to use him inside, at least play to his strengths. Or if you're going to run the ball and you're totally adamant on this, and James Horan is saying this is the Mayo style of play, well then play him around the middle. There's no point in having him in the edge of the square for knock-on and kick it in there. Let him get tackles. Let him compete for these long kickouts, which Morgan was doing. It was so obvious for the entire game that was a tactic. That's Aidan O'Shea's strength. If you're not going to kick it into the full forward, play him out around the middle. And I felt more so, yes, there's questions over a couple of matchups I would have felt with what Mayo did in terms of their defence. I thought their style of play really, really suited what Tyrone wanted them to do. And that's a big thing. Like to not have that adaptability, to be able to see that at halftime or in the third quarter, you're going, we are struggling for scores here. We need to change this up. And it just didn't come. And it was comfortable for Tyrone. I don't think their defence, and they'll get a lot of praise because they're so well organised, but I don't think they were really tested either.
Paddy, what feeds into this as from a football point of view and a coaching point of view is that the tempo that Tyrone played the game with. So Mayo had 2-1 fans in the stadium the last day. The whole country knows us. Love getting behind the team. Sure. Yeah. There wasn't a moment in the game on Saturday where you could stand up and go, you never heard it, Tommy. No. I guarantee you Lee McHale didn't get up and kind of give it one, where you're saying, come on, But it never happened because Tyrone didn't allow that to happen. And that's what you call a tactic. And the reason to do that is because they know Mayo want to play the game like that. They want to go up and down the field. They want big runners right through the middle. They know we want to play with a tempo. They know we want to do it quickly. And when they slow it down, it makes their matchups easier for them. Then you see Meyler sprinting 30, 40 yards to take a 5-yard hand pass off Morgan. And you're thinking, why is he doing that? Because he's killing Paddy Durcan by doing that. He's killing him. And then you have a Frank Burns coming in. You have O'Neill coming in. You have Kilpatrick running Tommy Conroy through the middle of the field because that's their tactic. They're running them guys all over the pitch because then when the ball comes in, the guys aren't fresh. They're not where they need to be. And the way you kill that tempo, though, Tommy, the way you kill that tempo is by kicking the ball in. It feels like it's the wrong thing to do because you're thinking we can't get turnovers. But if you think about it, if you kick the ball in from halfway or from the outside the 45 into the full forward line, you have 12 or 13 men in good positions to counteract the counter-attack. If you run it in there, you have too many fellas ahead of the ball and they're just going to counter you. That's the nature of kicking the ball in. And if you don't then, sorry, Paddy, on that, the other way you kill the tempo is by pressing the kick out. You can't give them a kick out because then they just get the ball and they hold it for 10 minutes. When you were playing against Cluxton, when you used to get tired with 55, 60 minutes gone, if he got one off to Johnny Cooper in the corner, you nearly started crying because you knew you weren't getting it back to 2 minutes. Do you know what I mean? They just killed the tempo. So you had to make him kick it out the middle of the field.
Can I, like, Colin
Can I just say on that point, Tommy, sorry, because it's easy to get lost in this. And we're talking about Tyrone feed off turnovers. So get 2-7 off turnovers against Kerry. They get 1-7. They get half their scores from turnovers. And yet we're saying kick the ball in. There's a massive difference between turning the ball over in contact, carrying it into contact, up the centre channel, running down blind alleys. That's a bad turnover to give away. You're not set. You're turning it over in a dangerous area of the pitch and allows Tyrone to break at pace. There's what's called like an aggressive turnover. If you're 60, 70 yards out from goal and you put a 50-yard kick pass right into the 21, into the full forward, and he loses it there, that's not the work. That's an aggressive turnover.
It's a little bit like how Jack O'Connor used to set up the Irish team, a little bit like put it into the corner and
Jack Charlton.
Or Jack Charlton, sorry.
Yeah, but basically the reward of that ball going in, if they turn it over, it might be a kick out for Morgan, or Morgan gets it and he's on the edge of the square. That's not a bad turnover to give away. So people are saying, why are you saying kick the ball when you're giving out about turnovers? There's different types of turnovers.
Yeah, but you've also got a target of Aidan O'Shea there, who's a
exactly, and that's why it was just. We said it last week. We spoke about it that I didn't expect to see him inside because he's not going to get those scores. To get the best out of him, play him in his best position, and it was just like he was second half playing inside, not having an impact on the game. And we're talking about this for Mayo to win this game. Their biggest players needed to be influential in the game, and to do that, you've got to at least try and give them the best opportunity to do that. Yep. And I just don't feel they did that. I really don't feel they did that at times. And for Tyrone, if you're McNamee and you're McKiernan and you're Hampsey on Tommy Conroy, and you just see these lads are just running the ball from all over the pitch, that's easy to defend. That's your breeder. You know you're not going to have to sprint out and try and win a 50-50 ball, a 60-yard kick pass. That's the Tyrone defence wanted that. That suited them. And that's, I think, the disappointing thing if they're reviewing that for Mayo and for James Horn.
In the 38-minute of the All-Ireland final, I think there's 2 points in it. Tommy Conroy's bare and true in goal. Probably if he takes another touch, he probably buries it. He just takes from too far out. Less than 2 minutes later, it's a penalty. Ryan O'Donoghue shaves the post. 2 minutes later, Colin McShane is brought in. And a minute after that, Padraig Hampsey is coming up the line with the ball. He gives it to Conor Meyler. Conor Meyler doesn't think about it, Andy. He knows that he's floating that ball into Colin McShane. It's a full forward's dream, that ball.
They've done that move. That's a training ground move. Like the 2 goals are straight from the training pitch. Like the boys have done that multiple times. You can see it is right in front of me. It's a beautiful pass. The movement is sensational, and it's a great score. But I go back to, I better give him credit because I told them Mayo were going to win midfield last week, so I have to go back to Kilpatrick. Loftus is burying true. He's in the D. Kilpatrick makes the most outstanding turnover, like the most outstanding turnover. The goal comes from that. And the second goal, we all know, comes from a Kilpatrick high catch. So, like, it was outstanding play right through. Hampsey coming through. I can picture him now. Meyler just being in the right position. Us not squeezing it. You often hear in soccer, don't let the cross get into the box. You know, squeeze it. You could see it happening, and it didn't. It's a beautiful move. And you're mentioning Tommy there and Ryan, 2 guys. Unfortunately, Tommy carries that a bit more. Aidan is in the back post. It's tapping, but I genuinely feel that Tyrone were actually in control of the game. I know that sounds silly. Like, if you think about the penalty chance, the penalty comes from a free that we miss that falls into the box and we get the penalty from. Do you know, it wasn't. But I know. It could. Is
there not such fine lines though?
And we needed something to absolutely get the crowd going and get our energy moving. But it just didn't. I have to say, from where I was sitting, it didn't feel I was hoping the goal could crash the back of the net, the penalty, and I was like, it's a huge chance, and I thought it'd give us a bit of momentum. They still in McShane, Canavan, Paul Donny, Ben McDonald, who was brilliant when he came on again. Them guys, they still had them to come on. It could have 100%. It could have, and it could have got us to that 19-20 point mark. But realistically, Tyrone were in control of the game. You were at it, Tommy. I was at it. They were in control of the game.
And you have Mayo teams over the last decade, say from 2011, had license to kick the ball.
We always had license to kick the ball. Of course we had, yeah, 100%. But do you know what bullshit narrative I hate, lads? Do you know what I hate? I hate this comparing games to years ago. Compare it on its merits of the game, right? Mayo played Tyrone last Saturday evening. Two absolutely completely new teams. James Horn overachieved by getting Mayo to that final. When we were here, me and Paddy have said it for weeks. Killian O'Connor goes down in Cusack Park. Me and Paddy didn't expect to see Mayo in the All-Ireland final. No. You overachieved to get there. Brian Dewar and
last year.
Yeah, Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan. Again, we've been on about first-year managers. It's tough to build a system. They overachieved by getting to the final. Take the game on its merits. We said it was going to be nervy, edgy, who took the chance the best. Tyrone did that. They controlled the game, the better performances. What has 2016 and 2017 and 11 and 12 got to do with a final in 2021? Absolutely.
He's just trying to keep us relevant, Andy.
Yeah, but it is, Paddy.
Are you blaming me for that bullshit narrative? Because that's not what I was getting.
No, well, you're part of the media. Me and Paddy just did.
You two boys are part of the media now too.
Me and Paddy just dip in and out.
Don't trust the media.
Yeah, it's like this thing. All my own finals, and just take the game was there. The match was there. The better team won the game by a distance.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would say in response to that, and I agree with what Andy's saying, Mayo lost. I feel Mayo lost that game. There was a lack of quality, I felt. I thought Tyrone technically were far better in their tactical execution of the game. But also, here's an example, right? Conor Meyler is a transition player himself, and McGeary, Tiernan McCann and these guys. Yet there he is. He has the ability to adapt to what's in front of him as well. That yes, he'll carry the ball. He'll go man to man on Paddy Durkin. He'll match him from an athletic point of view. But he gets the ball on the sideline. Mayo stand off, man. He sees McShane's run and he executes a 40-yard kick pass onto the money behind Oisin Mullen. That's adapting to what's happening in front of him. Whereas I feel Mayo were just so rigid and we're running the ball. That's it. Tyrone, I felt, technically were better in their skill execution. And I feel that you can talk about Mayo and the mentality of losing finals and it's how many X, Y, and Z and James Horn and Aidan O'Shea and all these guys. Mayo were outplayed completely in that game on Saturday. It was nothing else. I don't think it was a mental thing. It was from a quality standpoint. Tyrone, their kick pass and they moved the ball slicker. They were more clinical with their chances that they got. Like Mayo had probably 4 goal chances. Don't take them. Tyrone take their 2, and that's ultimately the difference in the game. And for the goal, I think Meyler, an example of that. There's a guy who's known as a runner and a ball carrier. He still has the wherewithal and the skill to turn around and go, well, there's a 50-yard kick pass. I'll just nail that. And Pádraig Hampsey goes man to man with Tommy Conroy, and he finds himself 40 yards out on the right-hand sideline, and he has the skill and the wherewithal to nail that kick on the outside of his right. McGeary has the same. Mayo get those chances. Jordan Flynn, Conor Loftus. They didn't have the technical ability to do that. That's a huge difference, and you can't really get away from that side either.
Just on the technical ability, for Canavan's point, right? For Derek Canavan's point, Michael McKernan hits an outside the foot pass.
Yeah.
Corner back. I think it's Hampsey again, running through the middle of the field, or McNamee. Outrageous pass. Sorry, Billy.
Yes. No, but that's. I think you have to appreciate that as well. And I think it's easy to focus on Tommy and the kind of the questions about Mayo and going back and delving through the heartbreak over years and years and years.
Sorry, I wasn't doing that there by my question by 11 years.
In general, the reaction I feel is Mayo have lost another final. Jesus. I
never said that once.
We're not saying it's you, Tommy.
I know. I'm
in general. There's no getting away from the fact that is a narrative out there at the minute. If you look at that game, quality-wise, technical quality, Mayo were completely outplayed in that regard as well.
Yeah. And Tommy, just on it, you put up a clip last week from Donegal where we kicked the ball in and we lost it, and then they go up and scored a goal in 2012. You know, so there's always been kicking. But the point I think The point is here that Tyrone, for example, the narrative is all week for 2 weeks was don't give the ball away, don't turn it over. That's what turns off the kick pass. That's
Well,
what
I felt the
playing
narrative
safer, minding the ball.
Yeah.
Sorry to come in, lads, but like I felt like what I learned on the podcast last week or 2 weeks ago was that Kerry didn't kick the ball enough.
Didn't kick the ball enough.
That's what I felt like. That's what I'm getting at here.
There's no issue with kicking the ball if you're kicking it in from 50, 60 yards out and you're kicking it into the full forward line and it's in around the square.
Yeah.
Like Mayo never did that. No, and I can see totally why it's like, be safe, mind the ball, but there's a balance there. And what's an aggressive turnover and I'm not going to risk that. I'm going to give a 5-yard hand pass. Like they do it once in the first half with Ryan O'Donoghue, finds Aidan O'Shea, and that's a big chance. That's probably the only kick pass he gets. And to be fair, if he's not an inside forward, but if he's a bit more natural inside forward, he'll see McNamee is totally committed. It works out for McNamee. He gets the block. But like how many times did that happen? Once, twice, the whole game. Do you know what I mean? So kicking the ball in the right areas is a way to hurt Tyrone, but not needlessly kicking around the middle of the field and turn the ball over on the halfway line. Then you're under serious pressure against Tyrone. That's a bad area to lose it against them.
Paddy, you said a wee while ago that Mayo's game and their style of play, it was the perfect team for Tyrone to come up against in the sense that the way that they play and the positional style they play. Is it not on Mayo then to change it up a bit? Like James Horn and, just let me finish here, James Horn and Kerry McDonald are sitting in the stand and they're seeing what we saw 2 weeks ago. And yet Mayo kept running into traffic.
It is, and that's the challenge for coaches and the players. That what are those players really comfortable doing? That's their A game. And certain teams are comfortable kicking the ball and they do that. Other teams are comfortable running the ball. You're trying to suit your players, but you've also got to have, like, the best teams are adaptable. That they'll see they'll see the challenge. And we always said this with our Dublin team, that we'd have massive respect for the opposition that we play, that we'd prepare, we'd understand what are our opponent's strengths, and we'd adapt to that. Even though we had won 3 or 4 or 5 All-Irelands in a row, it wasn't like, well, we're going to do our own thing and we don't care about the opposition. You have to respect the opposition and see, okay, what's their A game and how do we nullify that? I think Tyrone have done that in all of their games. And maybe you're right, Tom. Maybe it's easier for an underdog to do that because they feel they have to. Whereas with Mayo, their best game is carrying it. That's where they've had their most joy, that power game, the chaos game. I just think that really suits Tyrone. Tyrone have the energy, they have the organisation, they have the players that they can naturally deal with that easily. I don't think Ronan McNamee wants 20 balls rained down on him in the first half. And it's one-on-one in that space.
He
really
right and left. Yeah, he definitely.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. So you're thinking, well, can Mayo not mix that up and add that variety to the game? But like I say, it never happened. There was no cohesion, I felt. Whatever about trying to have individual standout performance in the forwards, I don't think there was a good cohesion up front. It didn't feel like they worked any great scores. It was carry the ball up. This is our game plan. We've done it. It's got us to a final. We beat Dublin with it. But I always felt, and I did say this last week, I thought they would struggle up front if they were playing that way to get the scores against Tyrone. And that's the way it panned out. There wasn't any real variety in it. That's the challenge for James Horn. And you know what they do for McDonald at number 11 there on Saturday. And he's hitting the outside of the left, 50-yard kick passes inside. That's for Mayo to get to the next level. You have to have different strings to your bow. And that's the point I'm making about someone like Conor Meyler or Paul Campsey or these guys that, if we need to run the ball, we'll run it. We'll tackle you. We'll work our backsides off. But if it opens up, well, I'll just kick a 40, 50-yard kick pass in here, or I'll swing one over with the outside of my right foot from 40 yards. That's top quality. The ability to play it X, Y, or Z, whatever's needed, and having the game smarts to do that. And I just felt Mayo were beating the drum, very similar to what Kerry were doing. And Peter Keane was really challenged about this, lads, not having the game plan and not having the preparation to understand what was needed to beat Tyrone. And I think I think Mayo are going to be challenged on that as well.
Andy, you spoke there about Kennedy and Kilpatrick in particular, how much they impressed you. Is there anyone else that stood up on the big day for Tyrone that you'd like to talk about? Like Niall Morgan is somebody who had a massive game, especially commanding. Like there was that turnover he won. Sorry, the long ball coming in that he played that unbelievable ball that led to the McCurry goal chance, and he goes up and he nails the 45. Like apart from that ropey kick out at the start of the game, Morgan had a pretty sensational day.
Yeah, they started very nervously. Tyrone started the first 3-4 minutes. They were so nervous. Kennedy gets a yellow card. Morgan kicks the ball inside. Joe Mayo go 2-0 up. And then just grinded them. They just grinded the game out, and they just went. Morgan was sensational, lads. The one you're talking about where he comes out and wins the ball on the 21 out ahead of people, that's sensational. If you're a full back, if you're a full forward there against him, you're thinking, where is this lunatic came from? Do you know,
I know that.
Yeah, he hit you though. But
I think he got me about 70 yards from goal. I thought I'd be safe enough.
He got you over by Quins.
Yeah, I was halfway back to Castleknock.
He ran by.
If you look at that point, Andy, sorry, on that, and I know we praised this fella for his heroics in the semi-final. I'd have big question marks about McShane's goal from a defensive point of view for Mayo. I think O'Shea Mullen loses McShane on the run, obviously. I don't like Rob Henley, I feel, should do a lot better there. I feel if you're coming for that ball, you come like Morgan came there, and you come out like an absolute train, and you take the ball, the man, you take everyone, and you get up the pitch. Or if you're not coming for it, you stay in your line, and you're ready for a flick on. Getting caught, I thought O'Shea Mullen and Rob Henley were just, it's like they lost their bearings. Rob kind of comes halfway, gets caught. O'Shea Mullen gets caught with a backdoor cut from McShane. And like to say, we know McShane is making those runs. That's a set play. And you're just thinking, there's big moments again where we said last week, if we're talking about picking all-stars, it's Henley or Morgan, whoever has a better final. And there's a guy, whereas Morgan is so definitive in what he's doing. He's coming out and he's taking the ball. And even though it's higher risk, on the flip side, Robbie Henley for that goal, I'm thinking, if you're coming, go for it like Niall Morgan and clean everyone out. But McShane is not flicking that into the net. And it's just, there's another moment that goes against Mayo. And they're the moments that they needed to go for them, really, to get over the line. As big as O'Donoghue's penalty miss off the post, I felt that was equally as big a play that just did not go Mayo's way. And the guys, I think the two guys will be disappointed with their role in that.
It is such fine lines as well. It did feel like Henley possibly, there's a moment when the ball is in the air, it feels like he's nearly watching it going, what am I doing here? And McShane doesn't even get the greatest of connections on it. It's just enough, and you're flicking it blindly. He knows where he is, but he is flicking it blindly. Like, there is fine lines there. If Aidan O'Shea dummies and buries that goal chance, like Niall Morgan was not in net. It was nearly like the Cork goal, the Kerry goal against Cork in 2008 when Cork had completely vacated the goals. It looked like O'Shea had a gaping goal from where I was sitting. It wasn't as gaping as that. He was 20 yards out with an impossible finish if he had buried the first time. But like, if that goes in, people are asking questions of Morgan. Henley made two brilliant saves. Like, he stopped Darragh Canavan in the second half, and a brilliant save from Darren McCurry. Yeah. Just a quick one, Paddy. Do you think McCurry should have flicked that up, or you two boys with your soccer backgrounds were you delighted that he got a good connection on it? Like we're saying,
I think he should pick it. I think.
Yeah.
I thought if I couldn't believe he took it first time. Is
he going to be caught though? If he goes down on that, is he going to be got?
Well, you've just so many better opportunities. But yeah, no, I think he should. I think he should pick it. I have to say.
It's a good connection with it though as well. It's a great save by Henley. To be fair, I thought he nixed it inside the post. He was watching Ronaldo earlier that day. He fancied it. But McCurry likes a bit of soccer. Surely he has that look about him.
Any boys in Old Trafford asking you about the podcast, Andy? No, or Paddy?
A good few. Yeah. Ronaldo was the main story, and then the football pod was number two. A close second. Did
you do the celebration?
Did I? No, my back wouldn't hold up to that. I would have, maybe about 5 years ago, I would have done it.
Yeah, going through it though, if you go through the team, Morgan excellent. The three boys in the full back line really, really good. Thought McMahon could have been done at times. Thought Aidan, like if he got more ball, could have done damage, but we never isolated him enough. McGeary quiet, Frank Burns, excellent. 7 then was Sludden or whoever plays there, Harte or whoever played there.
2 great points, Sludden.
Yeah, 2 great points.
Sludden was very good.
The midfielders, lads, get into the midfield again. 2-6 direct off them, like not assists, but like big plays within 2-6 of the scores. You know, like the 2 goals from Kilpatrick. The first point that they get where McCurry kicks his first free when McGeary wins it. Flick down from Kennedy. McGeary comes in, takes it on, like brilliant play. 1-3 direct from the long kick out. Then you go into the forwards, and we've mentioned Meyler. O'Neill just does a great job for them.
Can I just ask you about Meyler one more time? I feel like in the Paddy Clifford game, he nullified Clifford so well, and it was such a selfless role. I think we saw much more of Meyler, the footballer. Like there was a lovely, I don't know if you saw that clip I sent on, Morris Brosnan had broken down his game.
Brilliant.
But the kick passing, the array of kick passing, the vision, as you said, Paddy, the adaptability to go for it, like it was just brilliant. I thought he was exceptional.
Yeah, I couldn't believe his pace, Tommy, in that clip he sent through. His speed was unbelievable. I wouldn't have put that speed on him. But again, great credit to the management. They didn't have him running across the line, didn't have him as a direct wing back, put him on the danger man. Who do we need to stop? Paddy Durkin is the way we need to stop. How do you stop him? You stop him from attacking, but then also you have to do damage on the ball. And he ended up doing both. Brilliant. McKenna, we mentioned him. And then the boys inside, McCurry, Matty Donnelly wasn't his greatest game. But you go through the 15 and like they had performances every single place. Like they genuinely did. And essentially that's what wins the All-Ireland finals, you know.
And even you mentioned one man off the bench, McDonald. Like he had an unbelievable turnover as well.
But you're on about your midfield, right? So McDonald comes on for Kennedy, right? The next kick out, lads, not the very next kick out. It's planned. Morgan buries it out to the in under the Cusick, I think was, to the right of Morgan from the canal. In under, McDonald wins it, gets it on and moves it. And all of a sudden, you have new legs in, fresh legs who the keeper is going to hit straight away. Huge turnover. The last few runs, you can just see him burying his run into the Mayo full back line, like killing our midfielder, killing any momentum we might get off the midfield going forward. Really impressive role by him. McShane, Canavan just looks deadly.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be better next year, lads. They're going to be better next year.
I was going to ask you, Paddy, like, Tyrone have won 4 All-Ireland in their history, 03, 05, 08, 2021. They've never done it back-to-back. Brian Dooher nearly laughed at me when I asked him about it. He said, let me enjoy tonight. Like, the moments, man, Conor McKenna, he's going to get better. Canavan, as Andy said, is deadly. We've seen little bits of his potential. And Conor McShane has been rusty this year, and he's somebody who was top scorer in the 2019 championship. Like, are Tyrone able to get better from here? Or, like, would you look at them in January? If we're sitting down in January to look at the contenders, where would you have Tyrone?
I would, like, there, and not only all of that, like say that those individual players were going to improve from it. That group and the experience of winning the All-Ireland, like how they've progressed from the National League, obviously the shambles down in Killarney at the end of the spring to where they've got to now. I said this, they've improved with every single game. They're a smart team. They're able to adapt to, well, what are the opposition doing? This is how we could try and nullify that. And like I say, that they have match winners there as well. So now they've got the confidence. They've beaten Kerry. They've won the All-Ireland. That's it. Their first All-Ireland for I think everyone in that group. I don't think there was anything. Colin Cavan was the last one from 08 that had a medal. So there's massive confidence that will come with that for them going into next year. And also, Logan and Dooher will have more and more time. This was a COVID-interrupted season again, man. For new coaches to come in and get them to turn around to win an All-Ireland like that, that is an exceptional job. So the coaches will learn a lot and be even better from it as well. They'll be in the mix without a shadow of a doubt. You look at Donegal have probably underperformed again and lost a big game. Declan Bonner's got another go at it there. Rory Gallagher will try and bring Derry on a little bit. Dublin, without a doubt, will be back. I think the break in a couple of months and certainly getting a bit of hunger. And then Kerry, Andy and Jenny will be in charge there. They're going to bring new ideas. But no, look, Kerry, in all seriousness, Kerry are going to be right in the mix as well. So it makes it really interesting, the progress that Tyrone have made, because they were not in this conversation. Everyone, every single person in the country. And to be fair, neither were Mayo. It was Dublin and Kerry, possibly Donegal, and then Tyrone, Mayo, Galway, Monaghan in the next bracket down. They've jumped the queue, and that's the progress they've made. And you're right, they will be better. They will be better. We'll be interested to see.
I have to just give credit to Aisling O'Reilly, who works for Off the Ball. She definitely called Tyrone about 6 weeks ago. I'll find out when the date was when she said Tyrone could win the All-Ireland. Yeah. She'd seen them 3 or 4 times this year. So,
but Tommy, just on that confidence part that Paddy's on about, I was thinking about today, and these boys have had bad days in Croke Park. So Darren McCurry had a chance to equalise the game against Mayo in 2016. Pulls it like a shot that he should never miss. Miss it, pulls it wide. 2018 was a bad day for Tyrone in general. That team now, with confidence, like as Paddy says, the confidence to go and win an All-Ireland, the pressure that takes off you, and just go and just play your game. Like, some of them guys are going to come back much, much better footballers, like for what they've done. Like the confidence. Morgan is a new man, has improved and matured and really developed his game. I remember commenting on when he caught the high ball against Monaghan and got it out for a wide ball, and he punches the air like a hurler just after scoring a point. Like that meant a lot to him, because that was the stuff he was getting criticised for previous. And then he does that, it wins Tyrone the game, and move on. Now they've Celtic crosses in their back pocket. Confidence they get, lads. It's going through the roof.
Aisling called Tyrone for the All-Ireland on the 22nd of July, 3 days after they bet Donegal. It's not bad.
Few euros on that.
Yeah, there you go. Jeez. So just said I'd give that a little bit of credit. How much credit needs to go to Mickey Harte? Andy, I know you mentioned him in your mirror column. Like, I'm thinking about the likes of Kennedy coming into the squad, McGeary being brought in. I know that they had played under Fergal Logan and Brian Doohan, and they had won under 20 All-Irelands. But Mickey Harte did change things up towards the last couple of years of his reign. He was under pressure to do so. How much credit does he deserve for this? Because he was mentioned, obviously, Peter Harte was introduced straight away afterwards, and naturally Mickey was mentioned because he has so much to do with Tyrone football going from where they were to where they are now with 4 All-Irelands in the last 20 years.
Yeah, but even when I was up there in 07, 08, like the structures they were putting in place, the development squads they had in play, like there was a thing at a time that every player that came out of the development squads were nearly the same player. They were all this look away, dummy, hand pass, everything was the same. The problem with them that there was no kind of difference. But what Dooher and the lads came in, they put a bit of steel into them, they changed it up slightly, different kind of look and tactics. But in terms of the development of players and Tyrone football, Club Tyrone, all them players that played under him, massive. That's massive. And he deserves huge credit. I often say, like, playing county football is like a relay race. Like, you hand the baton over and the next team come in and do it. Like Kieran Whelan, players like that for Dublin. All them guys deserve huge credit. But Mickey Harte's longevity, what he built with Club, I think it's called Club Tyrone, the Centre of Excellence. Where is it? In
Tervahi. They had plans in place for that a long time ago.
And he put all that in place. Like, did he help out getting Cathal McShane home from Australia? All that little bits that were put in place. Even what Dooher would have learned off him, Fergal Logan would have learned off, Pete Donnelly, Joe McMahon, all them guys, they all learned. And he deserves huge credit as well.
What will this winter be like for Mayo? Because in 2020, you went home from that All-Ireland final against Dublin feeling like, right, it was a 6-point defeat. But like with Dean Rock scored a goal of 13 seconds, it never really felt like Mayo had that game. You know, it never really felt like any of the years before in 17 or 16 or anything like that when you went toe-to-toe. And we saw Tommy Conroy come out of that winter bigger, stronger, faster. We've seen Ryan O'Donoghue develop. Oisin Mullen obviously had an incredible breakout year, and he improved again this year. What's this winter like for Mayo? Because they've had another defeat. I heard somebody say this is more like 04 and 06. I don't feel like it. Like, I wasn't there, Andy. I'm not sure you feel like it was like that. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's very, very different than 04 and 06. It's still a very, very young team in a lot of ways.
It's a very difficult question, to be honest, Joe. I was thinking there while you were talking, I was like, please talk for another 30 seconds. But yeah, like, you've basically lost 2 All-Irelands down in one season. That's basically what's happened. It's only 9 months since we lost the last one.
Only Mayo could lose 2 All-Irelands in 1 year.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said. That's going to be quoted, isn't it?
That's all over Twitter tomorrow.
But yeah, so like it's a very difficult one. The huge problem is you have a style of play, and we're talking 3 weeks ago. Yes, me and Paddy are analysing, and Paddy's on about not scoring enough. And in fairness, I give Paddy credit because he called the Dublin performance to a T. But that Dublin didn't do their end of your Bergen, Paddy. That
lads, let me down.
You called it to a T, and now it's like we're now questioning: do they need to kick the ball more? Do they need to do this more? What did they do? And there's a blueprint now set out by Tyrone to how to go and beat a Mayo and how to go and beat a Kerry. So, do you have to change? Lee Keegan isn't getting any younger, lads. He was again outstanding the last day. He did stuff in the last 2 games where I probably thought that had probably gone for me. But he resurrected himself again. And to do that, and like Lee, like his personal life, his little girl, as he's seen, they have another baby on the way. So that's huge in your own personal life. And then you have all the other fellas with kids. I'm telling you, lads, it's hard to know. It's hard to know what is going to happen in the next 3 months. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I can't put my finger on it. James is a huge job. He's a huge job in his hands. But I don't have the answer. I honestly don't. And I don't even know what to say to you, Tommy, to give you that.
I think, to be honest, Tommy, it's the same. I think every county, and James, the Horde is going to be no different. He's going to be looking to find, how can I get 2 or 3 new players in here? We say that there might be another couple of guys gone from the back end of the squad. Like I said, we have praised James Hornan for the role that Mayo essentially in transition have made it back-to-back All-Ireland finals. Now, they haven't got over the line, but there's a lot of counties that would happily swap for that type of record when your team is in, for want of a better word, transition and turning over some of their most iconic players that they've ever had. So what he's looking to do going away now, he's looking to try and find a couple of new players. He's the same, I would say, that every team that I think Desi Farrell is going to be looking for with Dublin, whoever's in charge of Kerry, whoever's in charge of Cork, Paul Joyce with Galway, you're looking to evolve your game and get a little bit better because ultimately all of those teams are looking, I know Dublin, I know Kerry, even though Mayo are in transition, they're all going to be disappointed with how this season ended out. So if I'm the coach, how can I get 2 or 3 new guys? Mayo, no doubt, are looking for, can we get another forward in there? Killen O'Connor will be back next year, please God. I think they want to find a definitive role for Aidan O'Shea. If he's still a kind of a massive player for them and they're not getting the best out of him in big games. No, I think that's dual. I think that's Aidan himself will need to look at that. And I'm sure James Horner as a coach will need to look at that. But they'll be disappointed, but they've been here before. They need to find a couple of new players. Can we evolve our game plan to start? Yeah. Okay, we're really, really good at running the ball. Can we start in our first 3 or 4 National League games next year? They're back up into Division 1. Can we start getting a game plan where we can start troubling teams in a way more direct fashion and add that strength to our ball? But there's loads of counties, like say, your Galways, your Dublins, your Kerrys, we're all looking to get. It's an interesting National League next year. It's back to normal. And there's teams that will definitely feel they've underperformed this summer and they're going to be looking to put things right next spring.
Paddy, Darren McCurry won man the match, and afterwards he was asked a question, and when I heard the quotes, I wrote it down that I wanted to ask you this. McCurry said, when I left the panel in 2018, I just had to get myself back to my best, back to Dazzler. And I wonder, and it's kind of to do with the winter question I asked Andy there, but what can Mayo do? And on an individual level, what can the players do? When you were told in 2011 that you were being dropped from the Dublin panel, how did you, and I presume it was a long process and it may have taken a while, but how did you move on from that and come back a better player?
It's a hard thing, and Darren McCurry's obviously a massive example of someone getting to the very top of the game, but lots of players have been dropped off county teams and our club teams, and it doesn't work out as much. You might just turn around and say, particularly for older guys, and later on in their careers, they might say, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. and they go away, and that's a totally personal decision. They say, I'm not gonna do whatever I'm being asked to do by the coaches. But there are cases where guys turn around and say, I have belief in my ability. I know I'm a good player. I know I'm good enough to play at this level, because you start doubting everything, Tom. You're doubting, geez, the coaches are right. It's never personal. The coaches, and it was Pat for me. I know it was Mickey Harte for Darren McCurry. It's never personal. It's just that's their opinion on it, and it can go either way. But I myself, the same as listening to Darren McCurry, I had a little chuckle when I heard it. That was my attitude. I needed to go away and prove to them. I thought I was good enough, so I went back with my club. We had a great autumn that year. We won the Dublin Club Championship, and I played well. And just kind of, I had to look in the mirror myself as well. And I'm sure Darren McCurry would say that. He's not sitting there going, it's all Mickey Harte's fault that I didn't play in 2018. I'm sure there maybe a couple of points they mightn't have agreed on totally, but Darren McCurry, there's no doubt, has gone away and worked on his own game as well. And I was a very similar situation. You got to look in the mirror first. There's no point pointing the finger at someone else until you have your house in order. And the accuracy with his shooting, his work rate, his sharpness on the ball. That's why I felt O'Hara probably wasn't the most suited to him. I just felt he was too sharp for him. And he's improved immensely. And when you do that and you put in the work, and then all of a sudden the coach comes in, and I was lucky, Jim Gavin came in for me a year later and backed me as well. Very similar to what's happened with McCurry. I didn't have a year like him now, to be honest. But it's a great story, and you love to see things like that. And it's a guy playing to his potential. And once you have confidence, and you can see the coaches have given him confidence, but there's no doubt the work he's done has given him confidence. He knows he can kick these scores. And that's hours and hours and weeks of practice up in Garvaghey or wherever he's doing his kicking and his skills work. That's how you become the best version of yourself. And there's no doubt about it. Look, he's a nailed-on all-star. He's probably in the mix for Player of the Year as well. And that's a vindication, I'm sure, of his journey back from probably never playing inter-county football again, only 3 years ago.
And Paddy, if a mic was stuck under your nose at the end of the 2013 All-Ireland final, would you have turned around and said, listen, I had to go away and I had to go and find the wolf?
Oh, yeah, I was the opposite. I had to lose the wolf. The wolf was the one that was getting me in trouble.
Sorry, Andy, I interrupted it.
I was opposite to the Dazzler in that regard now, yeah.
that was worth it. But I remember being up in... Joe, I remember Pete Donnelly telling me stories years ago about McCurry, just pitch, boom, 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 bag of balls coming in. I think at the time he was working with his dad on a building site or something, just straight in, bag of balls in the back of the van and just into the park every night, kicking.
Love it.
You know, and that's sometimes there's no real secrets to this. You know, it's and him going away and saying, I needed to find a bit of Dazzler. I think as every inside forward, I think we know what he means, Paddy. You need to be able to play with a bit of looseness and a bit of freedom. And he played with like even the frees that he scored. He won his 2 frees. He won 2 important frees for himself. Scored I didn't think it was actually that good until I watched it back on the telly. He was excellent. Even he was
sharp. He was very sharp.
For the McShane goal, he wins the ball out in front of Lee. And he puts somebody through. Do you know what I'm saying? He wins one out in the 45. That takes Lee Keegan out of that zone. Boom. Joe, it's very important.
I always felt that, and it was off the back of an interview. I think he had done the interview somewhere else, and I can't find the original quote. But I remember getting him on off the ball when Colin McShane was convinced to stay home by Mickey Harte. He came on in 2020, and Ger asked him about a quote he had put in about practicing and getting better at shooting. When Colin McShane was under 21, he was a midfielder. He was a runner. He was nearly a bit of a dog of a midfielder. And Mickey Harte made a decision. He was obviously very talented. He was thrown in at a very young age into inter-county football. He had a tough time in 2016. He was probably one of the first man pulled off. 2017 then, I think Harte tried him once or twice in the full forward line. Didn't necessarily work. 2018, he didn't really go for it. And then in 2019, were you playing that day against... That was hardly that day. No, it wasn't that day, Paddy. But were you playing that day in 2019 where McShane ripped it up against Dublin in the league in full forward?
It was, yeah. That was the day we got a bang, yeah.
That was the day you got a bang in 2019?
Yeah.
Right.
Bettis, yeah.
Well, that was the first day McShane really set the tone as an
him and Matty Donnelly, yeah, were very good, yeah.
And he obviously went on and become top scorer in the championship that year with 354. But Colin McShane spoke about going away and getting his shooting averages up from whatever it was, 55, 60% up to 70, 80%. And just the practice and the sheer monotony of the practice that he did, it just proves it is that simple. It can be done. And like, that's a man who causes terror. It causes terror when he's in there, in that full forward line. Even when he's on, what's he operating at? He looks like he's operating at 70% at the minute. So yeah, I suppose.
But he should have scored 1-2 the last time, Tommy. He misses the easy free.
Yeah.
Puts it over the post. And then it's funny when the Hawkeye comes up as a fan, you're praying, you're like, Neil, but it's mad, isn't it? Like,
you probably had a good view of that in the Hogan, did you?
Yeah, I had a good view, and you knew it was tight because all the Tyrone boys were up behind the hill goals, and they were kind of waving the flags and kind of thinking. But he should catch, like, if he's sharper, he's a mark. He's a simple mark to catch.
Yeah,
and he lets it fall, and then he hand passes away to Oisin Mullen. So a bit more sharpness. He gets 1-2 there, has another outrageous performance, and but Tommy, it's like deliberate practice is what it's key to. And like we were always told as young fellas, it's kicking. It's not. It's thinking about what you're kicking, how you're kicking the ball, how good you're doing it, and away you go. And when you get older in it, you might kick 20 balls, but you might put the thought of 100 into them. Joe, you're not just bring out 10 balls, kicking them. You're kicking 20, and you're thinking, Joe,
scenarios, like different scenarios, different areas on the pitch. This is where you're at. Different movements going into kick.
Yeah,
like it's not like underplay, but it's looking back, it's so obvious. That's what you have to do to be the best player you can be. And the sooner you figure that out as young players, what a lesson it is to learn and going away. And that's your coaches, that's your older teammates. You're hoping they bring you along, and the penny drops here sooner rather than later. But of course it is. So you're kicking those scores. It's not easy, but practice.
I presume when you get a sniff of goal in Croke Park, Andy, and you've buried a couple in Croke Park, you nearly have to be. The shot has to be taken on an instinctive level. Like, there's no waiting. It just felt like there was a couple of chances there that Mayo had, and there was nearly a bit too much, nearly a little lax taken, or maybe a bit too much thought put into it. Is that a bit unfair? Like, I'm thinking of the Loftus chance, even Brian Walsh.
I think Lofty should have picked the ball up. I think Connor should have picked it up as well. I think he should have bent and just rolled it into the net. I think it would have been an easy chance.
Do you know what those ones, Andy, for him? And this is why he's back to my old penalty miss and my 4 rebounds against David Clark. I think he just sees the goal as open.
Yeah.
He just has to make any contact.
Yeah.
And it's a goal. Because I know that was in my head. It was like literally just get anything on this and it's a goal. And to be fair to Sludden, he comes out of nowhere and you're just thinking, that was kind of summed up what would go on to be Conor Loftus's day. But I think that's why he just says the goal is gaping there and just get anything on this and it's going to roll in. And obviously it didn't.
Yeah, and it did. Like with goal chances, to me, and I think we talked about it, neither me or Paddy, is it fair to say, Paddy, we were never instinctive finishers. Like I was never an instinctive goal finisher. So like I had to visualize, practice, do everything in my power to see could I get close to goal. Like I missed one in 2015 against Dublin when I came on.
Was that the one that in the semi-final where Cluxon saves it at the near post?
Yeah, and I remember thinking about that, just thinking about that all winter, thinking, how do I improve that? You know, it was the first time I was fit in ages, and it was that winter I could go away and actually get to the pitch and do. So it was just putting balls into the net, left, right, but it had to be like that for me, where other people are more instinctive in it. They just have that killer instinct. I think we went through it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I never had that for goals. So everything for me was I had to visualize it, practice it, have it in my head that I wanted to score a goal, everything. You know?
Well, the one in 13 was pretty instinctive, I would have argued. Like, you didn't have much time to think about that one. You slotted it by Cluxon.
Yeah, but I thought about it for about 1,000 hours before I went to the game.
Okay. You
just made it look easy.
Yeah, no, I was lying in the bed. I was thinking, how am I going to
do,
Yeah, and I was thinking if Cluxton comes out of me, I'm going to take it around him. So I had that goal scored 1,000 times before I went into the match,
Yeah, and you spoke about it before, actually, all the build up to that year, how much visualization worked for you a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I couldn't run, so I had to do something, yeah.
Well, I thought there was a very interesting graphic put up by Colin Traynor, I think is involved with the Armagh GA SAS team, and it was Mayo's shot map. And it felt like in the second half, they had shot from ridiculous angles. Maybe some of the Loftuses were, maybe Cohen's were, maybe Flynn's were just taking snapshots, but they were maybe shot under duress as well. Like, was the shot selection just off, Paddy?
I thought the players that were taking them, that was Killen O'Connor taking those shots. I think he has the competency to nail them. Like, so they're not on the sideline, but in terms of the range of where they're kicking from, and this is why we're praising Hampsey and McGeary for kicking these long range points. They've kicked them in every game this summer nearly.
Yeah.
Whereas one, I think they're right on the range for those particular players. I think they'd have been massive scores if they go over. I don't think they're 8 out of 10 shots for them. Also, the fact that they're pressurised, that Tyrone are, they haven't worked. That's what I'm talking about, the cohesion of the forward. Like, they haven't worked the ball into that position with a really slick move. But they feel like they're snapshots, that there's nothing else on. Like Jordan Flynn's one in particular was look, it was a bad one. Brian Walsh's one, it comes across and he just snatches at it completely. He's just like nearly like Loftus's one in the first half. I'm so close to go, just smash this and I'll get a point out of it at least, where you're thinking, possibly, is there
Horan's reaction to that? Horan's
what
reaction
was his reaction? I didn't see it.
Oh, like I immediately looked straight down. He had the hands in the heads. I don't know if he was doing it for every miss, but he certainly did it for that Brian Walsh miss. That felt like a big one. Just in that moment.
But that's what I mean.
Tyrone's first score that second half was a goal. Their first score was a goal.
Tyrone's first point in the second half was 63 minutes, Peter Harte. So they were like at that stage.
Mayo had every chance.
The shot.
You're talking about being the clinical, and that's where we said it, to be fair, not harping on, but like I remember the 16 final and the drawn match, I think it was 7 minutes into injury time, Mayo get the ball to Aidan O'Shea. We looked at, or not to Killen O'Connor, sorry, who nails a kick from those exact areas, just on the outside the D, about 40 yards out. We look at Conor McManus against Galway in that National League, and they get the ball to him. They get the ball to Jack McCarran. You want your key shooters on the ball in the clutch moments, and to be honest, Mayo didn't really have a clutch shooter, but they definitely wasn't Jordan Flynn or Conor Loftus the way it was going for them. And that's what I mean. If those scores go over, they're unbelievable scores for those players, whereas it just felt forced. It felt like they were snapshots. And with each miss, I can imagine James Horan's reaction. Another one goes wide, and you're just thinking, we've been down this road before, and that's the disappointing thing for them.
Yeah, but Paddy, just like it was very similar to last year's final, where we only scored a point, I think, from the 55th minute on. And remember the amount of shots we had. I think Darren
Cohen has a couple. He's another one on Saturday again. There, like,
Darren Cohen and James Kerr comes on, and they just forced it a bit. But every score, Tommy, it's hard to explain. In an All Ireland final in the second half is premium. It's premium because you're getting tired. The teams are getting tired. You don't want to give the ball away. You most certainly don't want to drop it short. Like, they're just at premium. And what Dublin had for years was Paddy maybe, Dermot Connolly, Kevin Mack, Cormac Costello. These guys were just coming in, and they were the guys taking the shots or winning the frees or getting Dean Rock into good positions to kick it. And if you were going to look who had them guys the last day, Tyrone had them. And Tyrone kicked their first point. Even at that, like, Peter Harte jumps up, catches the ball, you're just going,
brilliant, Mark.
Smash him. Like, he cannot catch the ball in that situation. He has to be smashed. But fatigue is kicking in. He kicks the mark, right man in the right position, big play, kicks it over the bar, and then they scored 3 points then after that in between the 63rd and the end of the game. So that was a huge mark. And the other two that were scored, 2 out of the other 3 that were scored, or the next 3 that were scored, were 2 hand passes over the bar, and a free from Morgan. So it just shows how hard it is to get a score in them moments. Do you know? So, like, what did they score? They scored 2-4 in the second half. Tyrone did. The 2 goals were palms into the net, weren't they?
Flicking a palm,
Flicking a palm, right? 2 hand passes over the bar and a free. There was a mark. Like, there was very little. That's the margins, Tommy, and these margins, I don't think we've been good going down the stretch of All Ireland finals last year, this year, I don't think we were, and that's kind of cost us.
You're listening to episode 19 of the Football Pod of Paddy and Andy. It feels a bit weird to say we're 19 episodes in, lads, but we are, and that's where we got to. We got to the end of the summer. Next week, I had asked Paddy to do his homework a few weeks ago, and he didn't do it, so we had to kick it back. So we're picking our all-star team.
I have a week off for homework now. I'm going on holidays, isn't
I? Are you going on holidays again? Fair play. So we're next week. We're picking our all-star team. So we have a question in on whether or not Paddy Kilpatrick should get an all-star. So you might answer that for us next week when you pick your teams. We do have a couple of questions in about Lee Keegan, Andy, and I might throw them at once to you. Joe wants to know, should Mayo deploy Lee Keegan in the forwards next year? And who asked the second one here? You can answer that one first. Oh, yeah. A.D. Fry wants to know, is Lee Keegan the best player to never win Sam?
I think there's no more players don't, like, it's amazing because more players in Ireland don't win Sam than they actually do. You have Dublins and Kerrys and these guys come around winning 6 and 8 on Ireland's like, that's a generation of footballers. So listen, there's been many great players that didn't win Sam. Is he the best Mayo player that's ever played the game? In my opinion, he is. Particularly the people I've played with. So is he the best Mayo player, in my opinion, that has won Sam? I can answer that. Yes. You look at the Conor McManus of this world, the Johnny Doyles of Kildare of this world, the Kieran Whelans of this world. There's been outstanding, the Shane Walsh of this world playing for Galway. There's been many outstanding players that have won it. More players don't win it. But listen, for Mayo, he's been the best player. I've said it on many times. He is the guy that marks the danger man, the guys that scores in All-Ireland finals, the guys that set the tempo at training. Really, really strong, good teammate. He's the best player that ever played for us, in my opinion. And so that means he's probably the best Mayo player that has won it.
That's fair, and it's a good answer. And should they play him in the forwards next year? If he's still there?
No way. Absolutely no way. He is. We played him there, actually. We played him there in 2017 against Kerry. Played him at centre forward. He marked Paul Murphy because Aidan had to go back to full back. And he was actually very quiet, but he did the job on Murphy as well. But it doesn't suit him. He needs green grass in front of him and go running into it.
Yeah, I would have thought so as well. Paddy, Ben wants to know, what did Kieran McGeary do differently this year that transformed him into a likely player of the year? It's not an easy question, but you might have something for us.
No, like I say, I think you've got to praise Logan and Dooher for understanding this. And I'd put Conor Meyler into this bracket as well. I'd put Miles Ludden into this bracket as well. They identified what are our players most comfortable doing. What are they really, really good at? They have brilliant athleticism. They're really comfortable on the ball. They can run for literally for 80 minutes straight. Let's use these guys. Let's not have Conor Meyler playing wing forward as a traditional wing forward, trying to catch kickouts and kick scores. That's not his game. And the same with McGeary. We want you as our playmaker. It was traditionally Peter Harte for many, many years. They let Peter Harte go a little bit further up the pitch, and McGeary was the guy that was transitioning the ball up the pitch to him. And he's just a really, really smart player. He doesn't give the ball away really much at all. Has 30 odd possessions a game and will chip in with 2 or 3 points. It's the understanding of what the coaches understanding him, what's he really good at, and him having a total understanding of what the coaches are looking for him to do. Not trying to reinvent the wheel, not asking him to do things he's not good at. And he's got that confidence in his play. I thought he was brilliant. A little bit quiet on Saturday, but he'll absolutely be in the mix for his Donegal and Kerry performances for and the Monaghan game, the Ulster final for Player of the Year. Yeah.
Paul wants to know Paddy's thoughts on Ronaldo.
He's a great bit of stuff, lads. What an atmosphere! What an atmosphere! It was the first full house I'd been to since I don't know when. 75,000 over there. Andy, I'd say me and you would do more running than him these days, but he's the fox in the box. What a man! The place was going. Honest to God, I've been to Old Trafford a good few times. I've never seen an atmosphere like it there. The whole place was buzzing from early morning all around the city and going into the game. His box office, isn't he?
Class. It's great for the Premier League, isn't it?
It's sad. Everyone was mad to see him. So 36. Jeez, there's hope for all of us yet, lads.
Yeah, we might be transforming the football pod into that over the next few months.
In the off season. Yeah.
We'll put a camera on Andrews the next time he goes to Old Trafford.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not.
Jonathan Moffat said, I hope Paddy enjoyed Old Trafford, Viva Ronaldo. That's the last Ronaldo question we'll have. Dahi wants to know what was the most consecutive days Andy's went on the beer after losing an All-Ireland final.
Oh, geez, no, 4-6. There was a bit of wolf in me myself, to be honest. It was, like...
A week? Would you do a full week?
Oh, no. I'd probably go back training with the club then the tail end of the week after. You'd be, like, if you lost All Ireland, particularly in 4-6, you would be the third week of September. So your championship would be literally starting. So you'd have to be back. So probably 3-4 days. I'm not.
You didn't work Mondays and Fridays back then, did you either?
He was still in college. Was he still in Jordanstown then?
Student.
Yeah.
Paddy, I'll flip that one for you. What was the most consecutive days you went on the beer after winning an All-Ireland?
Oh, jeez. First one, 13. So you were only a young gun then as well. A week. So the following Saturday, anyway. Yeah. That's 6 days you would have done. Lads, I could hardly do 6 hours at this age. But when you're young at heart and you win your first one, it's a good week, lads. It's a great week.
Ronan Hurricane wants to know, will this result mean a return to defensive football? The template, I'd say, that Tyrone have set by beating Kerry and Mayo.
But what was defensive about us? I know Ronan. There's nothing defensive about that football. Like, if you think about it, what are Tyrone doing?
Well, they're not playing their sweeper anymore. It's more half.
The drop
Burns will cover, yeah.
Release Burns to pick out probably the weakest forward of the team that's not going to do the least amount of damage. Sit someone in on him and to drop Burns back in between the lines. Now, he's not always there, and he's there to pick up the runners coming through the middle. They play with McCurry up top, they play with McKenna up top, and then they play with the four special players, the Sludden, the Harte, the McGeary.
I think that's the big change with it. The defensive football and blanket defenses, that's kind of a negative connotation here. The defensive systems have moved on from that, where it's just get guys back in, don't worry about the transition, just sprint back and get 15 guys to sit there. The game has moved on from that. And if you look at even us, Dublin at our best, there were times where we would have 15 guys inside our own half because we have to work back, track our runners, particularly if we're playing Mayo, and then you attack up the pitch together as well. So it's not defensive football. It's not. It's the evolution of where modern Gaelic football is at, the athleticism that's there. You've got to work hard. You've got to be able to get up and down the pitch. So, yes, there's going to be times when Tyrone will have, and this is if like I say, transition is slow from the opposition, they might have 12 or 13 guys inside their 45. But when they get the ball, they're flying up the pitch as well. So I don't think it's defensive. Definitely not in the traditional sense that would have been used maybe as a negative term to kind of beat them with in the past.
But Tyrone what Tyrone are trying to do, because the cute, smart players they have, they're trying to set traps. It's actually not. They're trying to set traps everywhere. So they're trying to move the
put you down certain lanes.
Yeah,
and stuff.
The chess pieces around the place, and they're trying to set a little trap going forward. And it's very like some of the point taken lads in the first half yesterday was of the highest level. You know.
McGeary's point was exceptional.
Oh, Sludden's
sensational.
Sludden, Hampsey's.
Oh, serious score. Even the one McCurry kicked from McKenna's assist from the kick out. Unbelievable score. You know?
We have 3 or 4 questions in, lads, about the social media abuse that's been directed at players. Aidan O'Shea is naturally one player who seems to always be find abuse directed at him. And a lot of the time, personally, I feel it's quite unfair. He was definitely picked out after this game. Andy, I know the headline of your piece certainly was that Aidan O'Shea gets unfairly picked out after these defeats. On a personal level, have you ever experienced abuse after a match?
Oh, I have, yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, you've got to, listen, we're amateur sports people. it shouldn't be happening. It's nonsense. But in the world we're living in, I think you're going to get it. You are going to get it. And that's it. And it's vitriol, and you have to kind of take the good with the bad. If you're willing to take the slap on the back, you're going to get the kick in the arse as well. Aidan's thing is different now. Aidan's thing is different because where me and Paddy would get it, we might get a bit of abuse, and Andy's used to it. Like Aidan, the stuff that comes in Aidan is personal, and that's the stuff I don't like. It's nonsense. Like Aidan knows that there's a tension on him, so he accepts a certain level of it, and I think as Mayo people, we accept a certain level of the abuse or the attention that he gets, not the abuse that he gets. But then when it goes into nonsense stuff where people are saying he should be taken off and all this, like, that's nonsense. What justification, in my opinion, would you have taken Aidan O'Shea off the last day? None. Like there was probably 5 players or maybe 6 players to go before you'd even be thinking about taking Aidan O'Shea off the field. So that sort of stuff gets to me a tiny bit. He's a big boy. He's well able for it, but it gets to the point where you have to, like, what I can't understand is the people that get paid to do a job, the journalists or the people that write in the paper, are allowed a free shot at an amateur sportsman. That doesn't sit well with me. How do you get that? And the person that you're giving the free shot to has no right to reply. Like, how in this modern world that we live in is that a fair thing for any newspaper article or TV to set out? I can't see that, and I hope we've always kind of rose above it because we can talk about the game and we actually like studying the game and looking at the game. For me, if you're doing that, you're lazy. You're just saying, what do I get a headline for? What do I get clickbait for? And you just put it out.
Yeah, Paddy, I think you said earlier on that both James Horan and Aidan O'Shea have to go away from this, taking the game on its merits. James Horan has to look at how he can get the best out of Aidan O'Shea, and Aidan O'Shea possibly has to look at how he can get the best out of himself.
Oh, which I think I wouldn't direct that just at Aidan O'Shea. I think we're talking about McCurry doing it. We're talking about McShane going away and doing it. That's just part of being an elite sportsman. If you want to maximise your potential, if you want to be the best player you can be, you've got to try and improve all the time. For players, for coaches, I wholly agree with what Andy's saying. People coming on social media who abusing players for whether they perform badly or not, the work that they put in behind the scenes to go out and represent not just their Mayo, I'm talking every county. We've seen huge reaction to this with soccer players during the summer with England. For GAA players here in Ireland to be getting abused on Twitter is beyond unacceptable. I don't care if you've played the game yourself or you're at a high level or you're a journalist or whoever or you're a supporter, cop on. Honestly, because it's like a lot to get me riled up now, but when you see stuff like that, and I'm talking about any player from any county getting abuse over that, me and Andy have been fortunate enough to represent our county and see the sacrifice and the work that goes into it. You see the sacrifice your family makes, your teammates, your coaches, your clubs, and for some muppet to come on and do that and be abusing you. Why you do it, I don't know. It probably says more about the person sending those messages than it does about the recipient. But not acceptable. And I really hope there's a bit of cop on with this, and it just needs to come to an end. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair, lads. I think you hit the nail on the head, and Andy, I think you were quite clear there in the sense that it's not just social media that it's coming from. It's obviously coming from other areas as well. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, lads, from the 2021 All-Ireland final? Paddy, you came on here, is it 3 or 4 weeks ago? Jeez, I think it took you 3 podcasts to recover from Dublin's defeat. I think last week we saw Paddy back to his best. Andy was carrying the podcast, I think, for about 2 weeks there after Dublin were beaten. Any advice for Andy?
It's a bit harsh. This is me getting personal abuse now. Jesus Christ.
Aye, but you're getting paid. You're getting paid.
For Andy. I don't know. It's like the disappointment there. I was good at because I think Andy's he's a year further out than me. You still feel so close to the team and to the lads, and to see your teammates losing after the run we've been on. It was devastating for for all supporters of Dublin, that a great run finally came to an end. But look, you just ultimately, part of the greatness of that team and the players is their character that they'll bounce back. And look, we've been saying this about Mayo for how many years, that they've lost massive games, and you're thinking, geez, will they get back there again? I'm even saying it tonight. I think they're going to be facing uphill tasks to try and get back in the mix for next year. But they've proven so many people wrong to keep getting back to the top table. Andy knows those players as well as anyone else. Yeah, it's tough when your team loses a big game, but sure, that's sport. The beauty of it is that there's always next year, there's always a next game, and that's why already you're looking at how the National League is going to pan out with new managers, with new players. Exciting times ahead, new stories, and I think that the championship was kind of relieved that we have got some of those stories, because, like I say, it started out 2 or 3 months ago, and you're thinking, this is not great stuff. We're hoping for big storylines, and geez, I think we've definitely got them over the last 4 or 5 weeks.
We had a question in as well of whether Mayo are further than ever away from winning the All-Ireland after the weekend.
Don't ask Andy that tonight.
I'm actually not going to ask Andy that question, but what I was going to say is that the way that the championship is set up, Mayo have the Connacht Championship next year, and Mayo have traditionally over the last decade dominated there, and you're into an All-Ireland semi-final then. Tyrone will have to go through Ulster, as always. So, like, unless the championships are restructured, which I don't know what way it's going to happen. Special Congress has obviously been pushed back to October. They absolutely have a huge chance to get back to that position once more.
They do, and like I think it's a fair question, if I'm being honest with you, because I was going over to Castlebar this morning. We drive through Mayo to get to Castlebar, to get 35 minutes through, and all the signs are up and all the flags, and it's amazing. Like I did say to Jenny, I said to her, I just go, you don't know when this is going to happen again, because we kind of take it for granted now, because we've been on such a run of getting to finals, and you take it for granted, and you don't know when that you're going to. Like, I'll tell you, lads, genuinely, the 10 days coming into the final, I actually really enjoyed it as a fan. You know, as a fan, like not as a, but I did, and I know you've probably seen that last week, but I did, and it was, and we definitely took it for granted. I remember saying when we bet Dublin, people were coming into the gym the day after, and they were saying, "Oh, will we win it?" And I said, "Will you stop worrying about will we win it? Just enjoy the game that we're just after winning," because it was such a special moment in Croke Park that night. It was one of the coolest moments I've ever had in there, and I wasn't even playing. And then we go yesterday. So I do think you have to be respectful of an All-Ireland final. They're hard places to get to. Quarterfinals or Super 8s coming back in next year, makes it more difficult to get there. And you just don't know. And are we further away than we ever were before? We're like 31 other counties. If you put Tyrone in it, it would just go back in that as well. There's 32 counties going at it again next year, and you start again and you move on. So that's where we're at.
And picking up from that, Andy, Kerry GA have just tweeted a statement at 9:15 this evening, and the Kerry GA statement is: the process of appointing the next Kerry senior football manager has commenced. The Kerry GA Management Committee has appointed the following subcommittee, who will revert with a recommendation at the earliest opportunity. That's Tim Murphy, the chairperson, Eamon Whelan, the vice chairperson, Peter Twist, the secretary, John O'Leary, the Munster Council delegate, Donald Daly, the Kerry Games manager. No further comment will be made until this process has concluded. A 64-word statement. No word of a thanks for Peter Keane and his management team over the last few years, but I suppose Peter Keane can reapply again. But as of tonight, Peter Keane is no longer the Kerry football manager, and they're on the lookout for the next management team.
Andrew, stop. There's nothing else in that statement. Are they looking at West?
You're killing me. You're killing me. But, geez, that's huge, lads, isn't it? It's
more than your son, man. Jesus Christ. Poor LP or Keane.
No, but I did.
Where are you? Are you going to move down to Killarney? Or are you going to do it from Castlebar or what?
Oh, you're a bad joke. But it's amazing how quick it moves, isn't it? It's Joe, only.
That's a quick one now, yeah.
Yeah, only is it going to be Jack O'Connor? Is it? That's a huge one, you know.
It's Fitzmaurice.
But you know what, lads? Do you know what, lads? It didn't seem like the day it was cast. Really, it seemed inevitable, didn't it? Really, just the reaction to that defeat, how poorly it went for them last year. The Cork game, you always felt that after that Cork game, there was massive pressure on them to deliver an All-Ireland this year. And once they came up short, particularly like say Dublin seemed to drift back a bit. They were beaten. It all seemed to point to a Kerry All-Ireland. And once they didn't get the job done, you just got the sense straight away that the narrative around it kicked into gear that he was going to be under pressure. I'm sure he's disappointed. I'm sure he's gutted for him and his family. To try and bring an All-Ireland back to Kerry, and they just come up short. So, look, there's going to be a couple of guys. There's obviously a few people have already kind of thrown their name in the hat.
Is Donny and them guys going to go for it, do you think?
I just think with what Jack O'Connor's done, it's a done deal.
Do you
would have thought. Yeah,
but is that not 15
he's gone
years
from
ago?
Kildare. But I think, why is he leaving Kildare unless he's getting assurances that, like, he was staying on with Kildare. Nailed that. He was definitely staying on.
He had decided
that
to stay on.
That result happened, and then it's like, right, I'm out. You've got to think he's probably been talking to someone in there, and that it's teed up for him. Who else? Fitzmaurice. Will Fitzmaurice go back? One of the couple of the recently retired players. Is it a massive ask, or do they want a safe pair of hands to go in there? Me and Andy could go in and do it. Don't know if that's going to work out. We play total football. Who knows? It's an interesting gig. Cork are without a manager. Kerry are without a manager. There'll probably be a few more over the summer, lads, or over the autumn. So,
does that make you feel like Kerry have more of a chance to win the All-Ireland next year? Or they have less of a chance.
Depends who gets it.
Yeah, and I think we need to be respectful here to Peter Keane and his management team.
Yeah.
It's tonight is a tough night for him. Like he's dreamt he's dreamt of that job probably all his life, especially since he went into coaching, did an unbelievable job with the minors, and it hasn't worked out. So it's amazing to think. Like I don't know who gets it. I don't know anything about the background, but it's for him. It's probably unfulfilled, and he's probably, as Paddy said there, it was probably not even the Tyrone defeat. It was probably the Cork defeat last year that has ultimately put huge pressure on this year, and then that's probably cost him his job. You know,
but that's the level they're operating at. Like I say, Kerry, Dublin. There's a few counties there where
there's no rumours in Dublin, Paddy, is there?
No. It's but just that if you're talking about Kerry, it's like, if you're not winning the All-Ireland, you're going to be questioned. That's just their tradition, their history. And for Peter and the team to have gone in there and savage amount of work, like we're talking about the work players put in, coaches, managers, selectors, all the young families and jobs, to come up short. They didn't end up getting over the line in All-Ireland, and ultimately that's why they've gone for the change. So, like I say, it's one of the most high-profile gigs there is. It'll be interesting to see how quickly it's filled. Like I say, there's not going to be any shortage of suitors for it, and you've got a pretty serious group of players there in terms of talent-wise as well. Lots of people around Kerry are going to be looking to get their hands on that job. Yeah.
Massive news, breaking news on the football pod with Paddy and Andy. Eagle-eyed Andy Moran actually spotted that one. Fair play to you, Andy. You must have a special tab there for...
stop.
The bath phone started ringing in the background there. So red flashing in the left-hand side of the screen.
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. If you haven't subscribed to the Football Pod of Paddy and Andy yet, do it, because we're 19 episodes in. Episode 20 next week, we're picking our All-Star team, and then we've got a suite of special podcasts coming your way over the next couple of weeks. So we'll leave it at that. Paddy Andrews, thank you very much. Andy Moran, fair play to you.
Thanks, lads.